The Champions League gives us 3 minutes of madness. One Red Bull franchise might be winging its way out of European soccer. Wayne Rooney's uncertain future continues to be uncertain. All hail our Chinese overlords, and a galactic franchise is heading to the footballing backwaters of London and Manchester in search of potential talent. It's Thursday, January 23rd. I'm Taylor Rockwell, and you are listening to The Goalmouth, a podcast collaboration between Dirty Tackle, Howler Magazine, and The Total Soccer Show. Up first, after 2 hectic Champions League matches on Tuesday, there were a combined total of 14 goals in 2 games. Things cooled off for a decent amount of time on Wednesday. Sevilla jumped out to an early lead in their clash with a struggling Leicester City and added a second goal in the 62nd minute. Then things got lively. In the day's other match, Juventus finally got on the score sheet in the 72nd minute, taking the lead over Porto. Leicester then pulled one back on Sevilla in the 73rd minute of that game. Not to be outdone, Juventus added another in the 74th, courtesy of a Dani Alves volley. So, for those keeping track at home and who disregarded the opening line of this podcast, that's 3 goals in 3 minutes. Those scorelines held, with Sevilla defeating Leicester 2-1 at home and Juventus winning 2-0 at Porto. In addition, 0 people on either bench were shown to have consumed any sort of apparently controversial foodstuffs, so at least there's that. It was also a pretty momentous day for Jamie Vardy. His goal on Wednesday means that, as pointed out by the Front Three on Twitter, he now has scored in the Evo Stick League, the Conference North, the Conference, the Championship, the Premier League, Euro 2016, and now the Champions League. Not too shabby, Jamie. Staying in the Champions League is something that might prove difficult for both RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg, should both clubs qualify for next season's tournament. According to Salzburger Nachrichten, which the internet informs me can be translated as Salzburg News, there are, quote, early signals from UEFA that only one club supported by Red Bull can play in the Champions League, end quote. Leipzig, who are currently second in the German Bundesliga, and Salzburg, currently first in the Austrian Bundesliga, are both owned by, not surprisingly, the Red Bull soft drink company. UEFA's regulations stipulate that 2 clubs with the same owners are not permitted to simultaneously participate in European competitions. This is obviously pretty bad news for the 2 clubs, both of which have worked, and spent, to make qualification for Europe's Premier Club competitions a reality. It's even worse news, though, for Arsenal, who, as of last week, were officially owned by Bayern Munich. Contest news now. You can enter to win a free subscription to Howler Magazine by listening to every episode this week. Given that it's Thursday, you probably already knew that. So here's your code word for the week: studs. That's STUDS, as opposed to, say, a picture of Brooks and Ryan standing next to each other. Once Ryan gives you the final word tomorrow, visit fifa.wtf/hellogoalmouth to submit your answer. That URL again is fifa.wtf/hellogoalmouth, all one word. So we said there might be trouble for the 2 Red Bull clubs in Europe. Another entity that might not be playing much European soccer in the foreseeable future is Manchester United's all-time leading goal scorer. According to reports, Wayne Rooney could be departing Manchester United far sooner than expected. The striker has seen his playing time continue to dwindle in recent weeks, and Jose Mourinho poured verbal fuel on the rumor fire by stating in a pre-match press conference earlier this week that the striker could leave the club as early as next week. This appears to have come as news to Wayne Rooney, who many had expected to play out this season before seeking greener pastures, and I mean that in terms of both playing experience and the money both he and the club will be paid. Meanwhile, United defeated Saint Etienne 1-0 in Wednesday's Europa League action. That's 4-0 on aggregate. For what it's worth, if you're trying to figure out how credible these stories regarding Rooney's fall from favor are, it's worth noting that Bastian Schweinsteiger played over 30 minutes in this match. Just saying. If, as has been reported, Wayne Rooney plans on heading to China, which he almost certainly does, sooner would definitely be smarter than later, given that the News Observer is reporting that the country plans to have 50,000 football academies in operation by 2025. According to the story, quote, the announcement, made by China's Football Association Vice President Wang Dengfeng, more than doubles the earlier target of 20,000 academies by 2020. Lots of 20s in there. Continuing the quote, Wang was quoted by state media as saying that each school would be able to train 1,000 young players on average, fulfilling the goal of having 50 million competent players, end quote. China's men's national team has only ever qualified for the World Cup once, but President Xi Jinping has made boosting the country's soccer reputation a national priority. With additional plans in place to qualify for, host, and win the tournament by 2050, I'm guessing that's probably not all at once. Word is that this approach was actually the federation's backup plan, but came into reality after FIFA informed China that it couldn't simply buy the current Brazilian national team for $11 billion and then simply claim that they were actually Chinese all along. And finally, the LA Galaxy 2 announced Wednesday that the club will host tryouts in England. For those unfamiliar, LA Galaxy 2, or Los Dos, as they are affectionately known, are the LA Galaxy's USL reserve team, though press materials from the USL itself probably won't love that classification. In an official statement, the club noted that it was holding the trials, quote, in an effort to expand their recruiting pool and discover players for the 2017 USL season and beyond. Tryouts will be held in London at the Hive on May 31st and June 1st, and again in Manchester at University of Manchester Armitage Sports Centre on June 3rd and June 4th. LA Galaxy 2 technical staff will be on hand to observe participants during the showcase, selecting a minimum of 5 players per venue at the conclusion of each tryout, end quote. This approach does seem like a pretty genius way to make contact with players that wouldn't otherwise be able to showcase their respective wares, although you do wonder about the caliber of player that will turn up. Perhaps the marketing materials for the tryouts should focus on the temperature differences in Los Angeles and England in, say, January. I have to believe that the appeal of living it up in LA is slightly greater than, say, living it up in Coventry, a city which, as The Guardian once wrote, puts the words concrete and nightmare into the phrase concrete nightmare. Pro tip for Galaxy coaches, keep an eye out for a guy that looks suspiciously like Wayne Rooney. I hear he might be looking for a new club. That's it for today's Goalmouth. You can explore all these stories in more depth by subscribing to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. I've been Taylor Rockwell. Ryan Bailey will be with you tomorrow, but until then, here's today's Goalmouth top tip. Changing your name to Lawn Ball Sports doesn't change who you are inside.